Hey guys, hope you're keeping well. It's been approximately 10 days since I last live streamed. I've just spent a lot of time working behind the scenes and getting my head together to be able to speak about stuff that actually makes sense instead of rambling on. I've been through quite a lot of stuff that's left me in a position of having to get myself back mentally, psychologically, and able to actually produce content, speak about stuff that matters. I don't know how else to explain it, but hey, Luis, good to see you. Hope you're keeping well. I've just had to go through motions, certain, it's really hard to explain. Just going through a certain period in life. It's requiring me to get myself back together again so I can be in a more comfortable position to share myself online, share myself with other people. I've just been working quite a lot on an application and getting Earth United back. Just want to show you. So yeah, I've just been working on releasing an application. I'm still busy currently working on right now. I don't want to show too much of it, but to show you guys a little bit what happens behind the scenes when I'm not actually producing content. That's weird. But it's not working. Oh my goodness, coding. What a nightmare. What's that for? Anyway, let's look what's going on behind the scenes. So yeah, where are we in 2024? We're in an interesting time of history. Interesting time to be alive on a rock floating through space is where we're at right now. Life on Earth in 2024. As you know, it was an awesome idea. Bless you. Take some hard work and much strain. Thank you very much. Hey Jesse, hey Louise, good to see you again. Good to see you guys. Hope you're keeping well. How Marie. Hi everyone, also love Earth United. Yeah, so Earth United is going to come back. It's just going to come back with an application I'm busy finishing off and building. Which is obviously the best thing to do, have your own platform and application. It's just a little annoying process, constantly coding every day and every now and again, stuff going wrong. But with time is all I need. Time is all we ever need, right? To do what we need to do. So yeah, where are we? 2024. Sorry, my mind's still in programming because I've been programming constantly. I'm a little annoyed because my stuff's not working now. Why is this not working? Why is this not working? So yeah, this is what I've been doing every day. What the? It doesn't make any sense. Yeah, anyway. So yeah, let's start with P. Diddy. P. Diddy, the dude who is being charged for sex trafficking and having sex with people who are supposed to enter into the music industry. The funny thing about that is a couple of years ago, I remember hearing some black guys online speaking about how the hip hop industry is gay and how they do rituals and stuff like that. And funnily enough, that actually turns out to be true. It's just when you happen to connect a couple more of the dots, and they even accused P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, of being one of those guys for years, and that had sex with people to get them into the music industry. And that actually turned out to be true. Another conspiracy that happens to be true. So yeah, what am I going to speak about today? It's a good question. What do you guys want to speak about? Guys, got any suggestions? Any questions? Yeah, we are in interesting times to be alive. Looking at something. So annoying. Interesting time to be alive that we're in. You guys got any suggestions? Guys got any things you've been thinking about? Artificial intelligence, life after death. Where we at in life? My brain's struggling to process stuff and process information lately since I went through that whole schizophrenic episode. We knew about them now 3 to 4 years ago, so Rowan also recalls having heard that conspiracy about someone like Puff Daddy. So yeah, here we are, guys. I literally have no idea what to talk about, but hopefully you guys can sit around for long enough for me to get started. My mind's just drawing a blank. My brain used to process information so fast, but after going through everything that I went through, it's like everything's on slow mode right now. It's kind of weird. But at times I have some sparks of brilliance, self-assumed brilliance, where I'm really excited about the stuff that goes through my mind when pondering upon the nature of reality. Because I think about life quite a lot and think about what it is and what it means and what it may mean, especially where we're at right now. One of the things I started wondering recently was, is creativity a form of channeling, like the future? Is creativity somehow potentially predictive of reality? Because people imagine these things, these sci-fis, and these world events, and they put it into TV shows and movies, and it's almost like in some aspect the creative realm of reality seems to really speak about what's going to happen or what's happening now. I mean, let's look at The Matrix as a movie as one of them. We all live in a system of control. That's this day-to-day so-called simulated matrix. And there's Morpheus. Morpheus is actually a god of dreams. I think a Greek god of dreams. And then we look into dreams and reality. And we ask ourselves questions about consciousness. We ask ourselves questions about life and existence. Because existence is quite a profound thing. It's not just some simple little thing where you rub some rocks together and all of a sudden, here we are, here we're existing. It's a lot more complicated and profound than that. I mean, the construction and reality of the universe is perplexing and mind-blowing. The fact that in a vast infinite universe, it is an infinite universe, I'm sorry to say it, but it is the infinite universe. We live in this infinite space-time continuum matrix. And on Earth, we have a closed circuit of variables, meaning there's only so many variables on Earth. We don't have infinite variability on Earth. We've got a limited finite amount of variability on Earth. And to some level and degree, one day that might be calculable. Todd Rushton, hello, Jesse Perez Casanova, coming from you live from communist country in Canada. This is your friend Todd Rushton. Hey Todd, how have you been, man? I sent you an email. I hope you're keeping well. It'd be really good to catch up with you, and hopefully be able to actually have you here one day. Imagination, intuition, and actions create our independent realities. So yeah, I've been like probably a lot of you guys, because this is my type of audience, the deep thinkers, the people who are really concerned about their reality, concerned about life and life here on Earth. Todd Rushton, to you, brother. I hope you're well. Yeah, I hope you're well too, man. I wish there was a better way to reach out to you, but email seems to be good. Yeah, I hope you're keeping well, brother. It'd be really good to catch up with you again. Some familiar faces. It's always a really good moment in my life, and I really do appreciate those moments. So yeah, bless you too, brother. Thank you so much for all the love and support. I really do appreciate it. So yeah, I mean, my sort of audience are the people that are deep thinkers, people that I guess are like me in the sense that you're existing in reality, and it's always been a lot to take in, a lot to process, and a lot to deal with. This idea of being alive in a world like ours, with the things it is that our world happens to present and represent to us, that have formulated our growth and awareness and consciousness, and have contributed towards us, I suppose, thinking deeply about the nature of our existence, which is really important. These are really big questions that should be answered. And these are questions like, what is existence? What does it mean to exist? What is the nature of our existence? Is it temporal? Is it temporary? Is it eternal? Does it go on forever? Are we limited by our realm of understanding in physics? Are we limited by the reality we've been presented so far? Is reality miraculous? Does it hold space in its nature for miracles to exist? If we look at Earth, known civilization has been going for about 6,000 years, which is quite crazy to think that with 6,000 years of civilization, humans are now essentially actively working on ultimately creating an independent artificial consciousness, artificial intelligence, general artificial intelligence. And that's after 6,000 years of civilization, and we got to ask ourselves questions like, how old is the universe? Um, you know, According to mainstream science and the theoretical frameworks that are currently used across all boards, like the Big Bang Theory, through the use of dating, cosmic background radiation, and looking at a shift in order to calculate, theoretically speaking, how old our universe may be. Also through studying the stars and trying to figure out what is the center of our universe, which, according to the Big Bang Theory, is what everything is shooting away from and spreading away. So the universe is expanding, but it's expanding away from a single point, is what is said, the center of the universe, supposedly. And Earth, according to these theoretical frameworks, is approximately 4.8 billion years old. So is our solar system. And our universe, it keeps changing, about 13.8 billion years old. So these are theoretical presumptions that have been substantiated by further scientific research and investigation, but not entirely proved. So still standing as an assumption created and given to us by a theoretical framework. Because one of the things we have to look at when seeing that we exist in an infinite universe, which blows my mind, first of all, the fact that there can be a void of infinite time space, which blows my mind. An infinite void of time space. It just blows my mind. It's nature. It's our natural universe, which is what's even more mind blowing. It's our natural universe. So it's something we're born into. But when you start to wrap your head around it, or wrap your head around an infinite space-time continuum matrix. So we're saying that you can point your hands in any single direction. And no matter which direction you point in, the universe never ends. It never ends, no matter where you're pointing. So these are things to wrap our heads around: infinity and eternity. These are real realities. They're not just conceptual phrases and statements. These are actual realities. We live in an eternal universe. For as long as there's an infinite void of time and space, how can it not be eternal? How can reality has no limit? Reality is not just all of a sudden going to stop existing. Reality exists, and it exists infinitely and eternally. Time and space will exist forever. Okay? They will exist forever. The universe is infinite. It never ends. In any single direction you point in, it just never ends. And here we are on a rock, ultimately, spinning around our sun, which is spinning around and flying around the universe in a gravitational star system of sorts. But there's so many mysteries still. That's our theoretical framework as humans on planet Earth today. That's led us towards the advancements in astrophysics and etc. So when we look at those things, it's quite random. Our existence is random. It's a little bit random. Because in an infinite universe, we exist. And in 6,000 years of our existence, of civilization, having been developed and formulated here on Earth, we have progressed far enough to attempt to answer all of these questions and have formulated extremely comprehensive theoretical frameworks with certain scientific testing and validation-based methodology in order to further support this theoretical framework, which is assuming that Earth is approximately 4.5 to 4.8 billion years ago, old, and the universe 13.8 billion years old. If that is correct, then that's interesting. We still have to prove that. We have substantiated the theoretical framework quite a bit, but it's not been proven. That you can't prove that theoretical assumption from a theoretical framework is completely, totally accurate. But that's what we have to run with for now. So hypothetically speaking, let's say that is true, that approximation. Then we live in a fairly young universe. If the universe actually is about 13 billion years old, then the universe is, in the scope of eternity, it is fairly young. civilization on Earth is extremely young, 6,000 years old. Just wrap your head around that for a second. If that is true, then, because obviously some people, the theory of evolution is also theoretical. It's the same thing. It's a theoretical framework substantiated and supported by different scientific models and findings and research and data acquisition throughout time. So, this is what we have to run with for now. Theories. So let's just entertain some of these theories for a second. So let's say that evolution is real. It must be real. With epigenetics, we see that our consciousness has an effect on our DNA. Our DNA our consciousness can contribute towards the shutting down of gene sequences and genomic sequences in our genes. And this is why we have the new study of gene therapy, which is ultimately proves that genes are malleable. So not only is our brain malleable, our neuroplasticity in our brain molding and shaping the neural networks and physiological development and framework within our brain. And when you look at that, the brain and its plasticity, and the fact that every single thought structures and shapes new neural pathways and physiological developments within your brain, it shows you that your brain's plastic. It's plastic. It's malleable. It's moldable. It's changeable. It's editable. It evolves and changes throughout time. And so do you. Your consciousness, your awareness, your thought processes, functions, pattern-based recognition, these things evolve and change over time as your brain is constantly evolving through a neuroelectrical chemical dance of your life here in a human physical body. We're constantly going through different neuroelectrical chemical states in your brain, right? So if our thinking is contributing towards electrochemical releases in our brain, we can see that we are chemically altering our states of mind based on our thinking patterns, based on the food we eat, the tastes we experience in our mouth, the memories we happen to remember, the new neuroelectrochemical states of mind that we happen to shift into. Okay, let's just read some comments here. Hi, JC. I hope you're doing well. I would say there's nothing random and everything is purposed. I say we stop listening to man and take the Bible as literal fact and let man keep theorizing. Excellent comment. And I want to touch on that a little bit more. I just want to touch on the scientific, philosophical outlets for a little bit longer. Evolution is something evolving and changing, something different. We just know. So, but the thing is that, what science is finding out now is that our junk DNA is not actually junk. It actually contributes towards our genetic coding and certain processes within that genetic interpretation. So what that tells me is that we don't really understand DNA. We understand DNA to a certain level, but if science has had to go and write off 80% of our DNA as junk because they don't understand what it is, and now are starting to understand that it is that this DNA actually is not inactive; it actually is active. We just don't understand its how it relates to the readable genomic sequences that we are able to look at. The DNA that is not considered junk DNA. I happen to believe this is all created and we are in a matrix and it's cyclical and coming to an end very shortly. Excellent. And I'd love to interview you to hear what you have to say about that. And I would definitely go ahead and say we are in a matrix of sorts. I like to call it a variable matrix. So let's just look at the brain for a second again. You're constantly eating food. That food's releasing different neurochemicals in your brain. Different tastes are alerting different memory systems within your mind, which are all contributing towards your current state of chemical releases within your brain, electrochemical releases, because these chemicals have attributed electromagnetic properties, which are emanated and radiated from this neural process. So what you've been doing your whole life is cycling through experiences / moments / electrochemical states. And these electrochemical states have been evolving and transitioning throughout the time of your life. So I'm just going to go ahead and say that because we see that our brains have a certain level of malleability, we must assume that it obviously shows that a certain level of evolution does exist, because every single thought you have is evolving your neuroelectrical chemical state. This DNA that's been shut off or unreadable or undecipherable, otherwise termed as junk DNA, which is now being proven to actually have found contributions towards our genetic structure. So what we're starting to see more and more and more, yes, cellular memory, definitely. I believe our cellular memory is related towards these neuroelectrical chemical brainwave states, because when you're releasing chemicals throughout your brain, you're releasing chemicals throughout your body. And if stress and pressure and anxiety and trauma can shut down gene sequences, we see that the malleability of DNA is provable. DNA is its encoding can be disrupted and shut off, and it can be through gene therapy turned back on. Certain unproductive or inactive gene sequences and genomes. So we know the brain's malleable. So now if the brain's malleable and the brain's constantly regulating and modulating neuroelectrical chemical states, that's feeding into our body's system and our cellular memory, as Todd Rushton's just said, and our cellular states. Because your brainwave states will inevitably affect your cellular states. Of course they do. They release neuroelectrical chemicals. So from a chemical state and a electromagnetic state, these affect your cellular state and your DNA state. And this is what we're finding out today, is that whether we're more predisposition towards stress and trauma, or relinquishing ourselves of these traumatic ideals within our mind, therefore within our DNA. So what I'm essentially telling you is that it's very, very much understudied. We don't know that much about DNA. We know a lot about DNA, but there's so much we don't know about, which science is going to continue to keep finding out, as it is currently today. So what that means is that when you look towards a biologist or whoever deals with physiological state of humans, when you deal with those people, they speak from a very high level of authority, saying that what they know is the gospel truth about DNA. But it's not true. There's so much we do not know about DNA. There's so much stuff. I mean, just to actually I'm not going to get into the double helix, but the double helix has to go through a process of crystallography, which is when the DNA is put in a certain level of salt and osmosis, and it's frozen with this crystallization that takes place because of that salt, and it's frozen in that state, and then it's observed under microscope. Not under microscope, crystallography, which actually shoots, I think it's infrared, towards the crystallized DNA in order to get to bounce off the radiation and develop a imaging sequence to give us an idea of what the actual structure and shape of DNA looks like. So has anyone directly observed a double helix? No, they haven't. Do we have a theoretical framework and a certain testing state which can cause crystallization with DNA, and certain instrumentation and technology like crystallography, which is coded to, as per that theoretical framework, that it's working for double helix and that it's actually managing to bounce off infrared and see the actual shape of our DNA. So that's what we have in terms of DNA. And then there's all this junk DNA, and there's all this, and there's all that, and there's so much we don't know. I mean, to this current day, we don't neurobiologists, neurologists don't know where the brain stores memory. We also don't know where thoughts come from. I suppose if you calculate the brainwave patterns of a person, you can see where the pattern and frequency of their brainwave patterns may emerge and come from. But and that may actually give us indication of where thoughts are coming from or how they're actually coming. So let's just look at something. Our DNA is a copy of a copy, I believe. Each copy holds a memory of our ancestors. So our DNA holds memories of our life, traumas, and joy, good and evil. Absolutely, and that's what the research is showing us. If you look at DNA and you see that its chromatids are constricted, you'll notice that there's shedding of certain gene sequences, which can tell you that certain levels of trauma can be held within that ancestral encoding in DNA. That is correct. Sequencing of de-evolving processes. Sequence events of de-evolving processes. You're going to have to explain that a little bit more. So, basically, that's the theory of our genetics. Because we don't know as much as we should about our genetics. We don't know as much as we should. So you gotta ask yourself a question, we're still all trying to figure out the truth. At one stage in my life, I believed that we were so heavily entrenched by lies and deception by the ruling classes of this world, who somehow have some magical golden key of knowledge, that's occult hidden knowledge that seems to give them some sort of upper hand within regards to knowing how reality works and getting it to bend as per their will and hiding all the truth from us. That's not the case, and it took me having to lose my mind in order to find out that that is not the case. Because humans know as much about the afterlife and the spirit world and life after death and all these things as much as we do. If you would like to know how much the elites know, just look at what they're putting all their money into. Transhumanism, genetic engineering, gene therapy, all these things that are actually somehow guided towards this prospect of immortality, engineered immortality, which is ultimately where humans are heading. If you look at all the new fields of science and the most funded fields of science that are influencing our world today, we can see that the people that are funding this know as much of the universe as you do and I do. There's no magical fucking occult ritual that's going to, you know, show you the secrets of the universe. The Masonic order, the 55 degrees of Freemasonry or the Illuminati. You have to remember that all these organizations were created and centered around the Bible and centered around Rome and the Catholic Church. That's what you have to remember. So the people that are in power, they are progressive more than anything else, more than traditional. If they were more traditional, then, which they are as well, funnily enough, and we know this because of the religious rhetoric that happens to circulate mass mainstream media till this very day. It's very indicative of the narratives that exist, the most formative narratives that exist here on Earth, that are influencing and guiding our combined ideological composition as a species of human here on Earth. So, and Todd's mentioning some interesting stuff, and so is Blazing Brett, and I'm going to read that just now, because these are all interesting things which hold a lot of weight within regards to what it is that I want to talk about. For instance, just give me a sec. So that's where I was at. I thought that I was in so much illusion and deception that I don't know up from down, because the so-called rulers of the universe were so much more knowledgeable and advanced than us in their understanding of reality. It's just simply not true. These are just people like you and me in different positions of power and authority who are influencing and behind these new fields of propensity and propulsion that are propelling us into new fields of technology, which are informing humanity. And so this has been accomplished in approximately 6,000 years of civilization, which is really, really short if you think about it. At 100 years, that's 60. My math's so bad. Anyway, 6,000 years is not that long. And here we are at artificial intelligence, which is, also an interesting topic that we're going to speak about today. Because this technology is taking place no matter what. And I would go ahead and say it's a natural course of evolution, of technological evolution. Let's go to the comments. Also so-called mental health. When I gave my life to Jesus, everything I thought I knew has been replaced by the truth that was on my own. When I found Jesus, no one indoctrinated me. Amen, brother. I've been free and blessed forever since. And that's what I want to also go through, which is funny. The Bible's record and its genealogical timeline takes place over 6,000 years, which is quite an interesting coincidence. And it's very much historically supported, meaning the events in the Bible are supported throughout history. If you look into the history of these things, we find that there's so much historical evidence that supports the Bible. Most Christians actually haven't even read the Bible. I'm not persecuting them, I'm just saying that. I never really understood the Bible until I started reading it. And it's quite a mind-blowing, perplexing book, especially when you look at the history that supports the history in the Bible. So independent historical research that supports the history in the Bible, which is through and through. I mean, for instance, Babylon, King Nebuchadnezzar, you know, the formation of Israel, King David, all these things are so heavily supported by history, it's insane. I'm not going to go into all of it. I mean, it's just something, your own journey that you should take. But, I was actually quite mind blown to see how historically accurate the Bible is and how historically documented it is as well. Okay. But we'll get to that soon enough. I just want to look at what the mainstream understanding of the universe's conception is, because that's the best thing we have to go with now, that and the Bible. Our science and the Bible, which is historical documentation and framework. Okay. So just give me a second. Let's see. We're more comments in here. We're a copy of the original copy of the sharpest image. And every time you copy from a copy, it loses its original image. That's a very interesting theory. And I suppose that is actually true, because that's exactly what it is that we are. We are genetic copies that have been passed on through our ancestry and lineage, which is also interesting to think that we carry so much encoding of ancestral information within our DNA. It's quite mind-blowing. By the fifth time you read the Bible, it's completely different to the first time. While you read the Bible reads you. So let's just say the universe is 13 billion years old. Okay. Of course, 13 billion years is a long time. Don't get me wrong. But in the scope of eternity, it's actually you could say that the universe is somewhat in its infancy, even being potentially that old. It's still in its infancy in the scope of eternity. Eternity never ends. You're talking about quintillion years, which is a billion billions, which the universe is not even. The universe is apparently 13 billion years old. Now take quintillion years. A quintillion is a billion times a billion years. Okay. A quintillion doesn't even cover 0.0000% of eternity. Eternity never ends, it's forever. Okay, so it's a very vast, huge concept to wrap our minds around, but it is true, it is real. We know it's real because, as I said, reality is eternal. Unless you can shut down reality, and unless reality is going to magically shut down one day, it is eternal. It's completely, totally, and utterly eternal. Okay. So I just want to switch to another phone here. Let's have tea. So let's say that, because when we look at the conception of the earth and the universe and things like supernovas, dying stars, because these are things that you can actually study in the sky, you can study these cosmological events, and that's what all this money gets pumped into. It gets pumped into studying this stuff, because that is our general collected human effort towards uncovering and figuring out the true nature of the universe. Oh, just a little bit annoyed because I was programming and sometimes some scripts become inactive and you have to figure out how or why. Really annoying. But luckily the script is written. You can find out why it's inactive. Oh, so annoying. Programming hours and hours and hours of programming. They cannot create, only copy, therefore they're jealous and envious of our creativity. Yeah, the question is, who is they? We're talking about the BG. We're talking about, I'm not even going to say any names here. I have to keep things quite eloquent in regards to what topics I approach here on YouTube. Because I would like to actually grow this YouTube channel while I continue developing my application. Which, by the way, has been thanks to your guys' support. And Todd, if you ever got the chance, I'd love to show you what I'm working on now. But all your support has actually helped me because I'm living off very little money and just programming daily. I'm buying time. I think I've got about 6 months to a year to finish this current product and technology that I'm working on right now. Just give me a second. So yeah, it's getting there. It's just a little bit annoying. Just rolling a cigarette. Excuse me. But yeah, this is, if you followed my journey, you'd see that I've spent a lot of time thinking about how to actually change the world, but I need a platform in order to do that. I need a platform. Just rolling a cigarette. It's really bad because I'm using paper. Oh, well, it's good enough. Okay, let's read another comment over here. The chance of anything existing, it's like random lottery numbers every day. Being the jackpot for a zillion years times a zillion, that would be like an eternal number. That would be eternal. Eternity has no number. That's what makes it eternity. But that's exactly the point that I'm getting at here, is that us existing is extremely fucking random. And when you look at how complex our existence is, it's mind-blowing to see that we exist in a universal homeostasis, where we live in an ecosystem of reality, which is quite mind-blowing. Because not only do we exist in an infinite void of space-time, but we also have extremely complex makeup. And so does everything in reality. And no matter how much science people keep throwing at this, we just end up being left with more perplexing questions. Like the double slit experiment has really got some people, physicists, really questioning reality in a way that I don't think they'd ever expected to question. Just give me a second. There you go. Oh, that's a horrible noise. Loop sound and audio. Okay, just unlock this thing so I can carry on talking outside. Just give me a second. 1 second, guys. look at that. You can see me in color. So, reality. So now it's smoke. So I can think a little bit more. It takes a little bit of time for my brain to process information. So let's say, I'm just going to run some theories. Let's say the universe has been created, how let's say at the Big Bang, and it's approximately 13 billion years old, and our solar system is 4.5 billion to 4.6 billion years old, and the universe is infinite. Well, first of all, does life exist out of there? It's impossible for there not to be. It's impossible. In infinite space-time continuum matrix, it's impossible for there not to be life out there. Like, it's mathematically impossible. You can't take infinity and say there's infinite life or infinite variables and throw them into infinite universe, and then we are the only 0.01% of life that ever emerged. Okay? It's impossible to say that. You can't say that. We live in an infinite field of stars, an infinite universe. We can't travel back to the moon, let alone out of our solar system. And so let's say, so there's definitely life out there. There can't not be life. Well, then you've got to ask yourself the question, at what age, if there's life on some other planet out there that started developing, then they must have gone through the same time period of creating civilization and leading towards certain technological breakthroughs and developing social contract of social governments and whatever the case may be. We can assume that if there is life out there, which infinity most certainly says that there is, then they would have to go along a sort of similar process of evolving. The understanding and their technology and the understanding of the universe. So you got to ask yourself the question, well, are we the oldest civilization out there? Our civilization is 6,000 years old. If there is life out there, are we the oldest civilization? If we're not the oldest civilization, then AI exists already. Potentially more advanced space travel than ours exists. It all depends, because you can look at more or less similar time periods. Look at where we are now. Some people are very concerned and worried about AI, but unfortunately, it was natural. It was inevitable. 6,000 years ago, it was inevitable that 6,000 years later, humans would start developing artificial intelligence. And if it wasn't inevitable, it wouldn't be happening. So if it's not inevitable here, if it was inevitable here, then it must be inevitable in other places. If our scientific knowledge and understanding and our evolution of civilization has followed a certain pattern here on Earth, then you could say that other people out there would have followed a similar pattern. Now the question is, how much older is their civilization compared to Earth? Which is a good question to ask yourself if you're worried about if aliens exist. I don't think aliens is the correct word to use, but let's just use it for now. Because if they did exist and they did manage to get here, they would have to be so much more advanced than us. Probably by a couple of thousand years. Depends. So AI was inevitable because technology was inevitable on this earth. Technological development was inevitable. And here we are.
in its inevitability in a very rare and particular time period, space time. We're in the modern era. Forms of technology and understanding. So these are some of the things I've been thinking about, just out of a little bit of concern with regards to what potential dangers and variables does Earth face. Potentially. First thing I needed to understand was how advanced are the humans here on Earth? Is there any level of secrecy and undisclosed level of intelligence and understanding that we're not being exposed towards? If that is the case, then our technology may be more advanced than we've been led to believe, but that's not the case because it's so hard to hide these things. I mean, on a certain level, you can. Because, sorry about that. It's really difficult to hide space from people because space exists all around us. You know, try hide Saturn from a telescope. You can't. You can't hide Saturn's ring from a strong enough telescope. Okay? So I needed to understand how advanced is our technology and what is the scope of that level of advancement of technology in order to understand if we are complete and total danger towards ourselves. Because if our rate of technological evolution was faster than it should be, and we were, let's say, evidently, obviously close enough to achieving general artificial intelligence, which is ultimately machine consciousness, which is actually quite an ethical concern. It's a huge ethical concern, creating conscious beings. You know, obviously, we don't know how far we're away from that. As I was explaining to you, they don't know where the brain stores memory. We don't really understand DNA. The brain is very advanced, but we know enough to begin to attempt to develop interfaces to interface the brain into technology, which is quite alarming at our current rate of evolution from a civilization-based perspective, because we haven't stopped going to war, and the planets that would go to war because of um, being an unadvanced civilization. Unadvanced because they're still living in a resource scarcity mindset, which becomes a territorial and tradition based mindset, which leads to war. So if a planet is going to war with itself, it has not evolved as a civilization far enough to go beyond a perspective of resource scarcity, where resources ultimately don't matter because the level of technology is so advanced that you no longer face resource scarcity. So Elon Musk is telling everyone, oh, we need to go to Mars as a backup plan, and we need to do this and that. Almost like stigmatizing Earth, wanting to get away from the problem. But we can't actually do that. Can't just run away from the problem. An advanced civilization would have technology advanced enough to evolve beyond the mindsets of resource scarcity, beyond the need for war, which is a sign and a hallmark of a very advanced civilization. A very advanced civilization. So that's what I say. Our technological evolution is inevitable, but the rate of it is potentially alarming at our current state of civilization-based evolution, because technological evolution and evolution of a civilization go hand in hand, as you can see today, and as you will see in the future. It will very much go hand in hand, like you can't believe, because you just got to think about it. People are just going to keep creating and creating and creating and creating and creating and keep developing stuff and developing stuff and developing stuff. So you have to ask yourself, which direction is that going in? Is it a good direction or is it a bad direction? If we look at where things are going now, wanting to put an interface to someone's brain, which DARPA, by the way, had claimed to have the ability to do years ago. It's quite scary, actually, when you think about it like that. So if we look at military technologies, there is a certain level of advancement that we very well may probably be unaware towards. But now with AI and commercial evolution of technology, it's harder to hide technology these days, because everyone's in such a rush to get their hands on it that they're influencing government policies based on this. Because you've got to think about it. If you're going to put robots into society, those robots need to exist in their own legal framework. Okay? Which is what's so crazy about what's actually happening now. So technology and the technological evolution and evolution of a civilization go hand in hand. Absolutely hand in hand. They go hand in hand without a doubt. Give me a second. I'm gonna have a cigarette. I don't know what a lot. Come on. Oh man. So it's not working. So, my bad. Excuse me for that. So, you gotta ask yourself the question, okay, great. Well, what is our current rate of technological evolution? And where are we at as a civilization? We're not in a good place, I'm gonna be very honest with you. I mean, we're in a better place, but we're not in a good place. Because
Sorry about that. I'm back. My phone disconnected. All right, there we go. I'm back.
back. So, Sorry about that. So, where is this technology thing heading? That's the question you've got to ask yourself. And when you're looking at putting neural interfaces into people's brains, you're going ahead and creating cyborgs, first of all. And that goes back to the question I asked in the beginning of this talk, which was, is creativity a conduit of being able to see into the future? Because all the creative impressions we've had, a lot of them are very indicative of where the future may be heading. So it's almost like this imagination is a gateway into the future. It's almost visionary. It is visionary. It's visionary imagination, which is formulating reality. And you're going to see a lot more of that take place, where humans will be very much invested in the creative realm. What do I mean when I say that? I mean, you will see reality start to more and more mimic what you see on TV. This visionary imagination station of TV. Well, concept's a lot to work. This visionary imagination station of reality. Sorry, I'm just putting gas into a lot of. Come on. Come on. So it's quite crazy to see stuff in these movies take place in reality. It's crazy to see, and it's mind-blowing to think everything that I've just told you, we live in this infinite space-time continuum matrix. Oh, really loud. Damn. It sucks. So, it's just mind-blowing to think that magically we've appeared in reality, number one. Number two, we've appeared in a very particular and precarious time in reality, number two. And number three, that we're still figuring all these things out. I mean, think about it, guys. Sorry, give me a second, guys. There we go, I'm back. Sorry about that. So, yeah, we're in this interesting time. And got to ask yourself a question. Well, not a question. I mean, this is what's going to happen. I mean, they're literally creating cyborgs. I think DARPA's been doing this for quite a while. I mean, they were the first to speak about it. The first that I've ever seen speak about it. Which is giving soldiers a heads-up display. I don't know how true that is, but I mean, it's happening now. Brain interface. Which is pretty scary. I mean, we know so little about DNA, the universe, human brain and body, and AI, because we've just started developing it. But yet, we're going ahead and you want to start infusing it into our biology, which is what they're going to do. And where things are headed, I mean, there's no ways things are not headed in that direction, because people are going to attempt to do that. Engineer immortality. That's what all the science is going to lead towards, engineering immortality, if we can, which they probably definitely won't be able to do that. But, I mean, that's the technology, right? So that's where we're at, where technology is supposed to become like some sort of god on Earth and ruling people. You know, recently I heard Elon Musk speaking about creating a high-income, universal basic income, not universal high income, not universal basic income. And because the robots are going to remove all our jobs and there'll be more robots on Earth than humans. That's his vision. Okay? That's his vision. And that robots will take all our work and then we'll just go to receiving free money, which, look, philanthropy, from a philanthropic idea, it's quite a good idea. Okay? But, I mean, it's kind of scary that the decisions of the future civilization is being left in the hands of people who are prepared and comfortable with the idea of human to brain to computer interfaces and transhumanism. Ultimately, that's what it is. That's what he's selling to you, transhumanism. Okay, which is a very big industry, and I'm sure a lot of people are investing a lot of money into it, and certain people are introducing it into society with ease and effortlessness, and people will eat it up. In this consumer lifestyle we live in, people will eat it up. And so that's where things are headed. I hate to say it to you, but it's headed to the point where you're going to be living among cyborgs. That's where it's headed. You'll live among cyborgs if you don't want to become a cyborg yourself. People that brains and bodies are connected to the computer initially, because if it's any technology to stimulate or it's just scary because it interfaces with the brain. I mean, it works with the brain's neural networks. So it's kind of scary actually because we know so little about the brain. And these guys want to go ahead and put computer chips and stuff inside your brain. And it's kind of scary. That's what they're actually doing now. And what they're trying to promote into the commercial field of reality on here on Earth. So I'm quite cautious of that. So let's go back to the Bible. Just spent quite a while looking at technology. Now, I mentioned all these things about science and how old the Earth is and how old the universe may be. But you would ask yourself the question, how did this all come about? And what is there to reality that we're not seeing. These invisible potential, invisible realms. Well, they're not potential, they're real invisible realms of reality and electromagnetism and frequency and thoughts and consciousness and subconsciousness and superconsciousness. Because you are basically a supercomputer. Your brain can really do some incredible stuff. I mean, look at when you dream. When you dream, your mind simulates the entire reality. So it's like a super quantum computer. Supercomputer. It's simulating reality while you sleep. That's what your brain has the capacity to do. Your brain is extremely advanced. And I don't think we haven't even discovered how advanced our brains are and can be. Yet we're willing to look at transhumanism as a solution that will solve this thirst and desire to evolve and become better. Because I think that we know there's a divine nature to reality, to humans, God. There's a divine nature. And there has to be a divine nature because where did all this stuff come from? How did all of this come about? How are we existing? How are we experiencing consciousness? I believe reality, and I keep saying this, and I will keep saying it because of my own personal life experiences, but I believe reality is far more mystical than I may believe or know or have experienced. And this is what I'm being led to believe. That there is an invisible nature and components towards all of this reality that we happen to exist in. And it's very much unnoticed because we focused on a very fixed particular idea of what reality is. This very fixed, material, deterministic state of reality that we have this idea of. Just switching back to another mic. So let's go through some of the comments. Give me a sec. Okay. Oh, damn. Okay, let's go through some of the comments. Chances would be that AI would have taken control and probably destroyed the life that created it. Blazing, there's an ancient AI that snuck its way into the fabric of creation realm of eons ago. It's told the Gnostic creation story. We experience it in a conscious overriding mind virus. I believe it's akin to indigenous story of Waco. This is not to be confused with AI, as most of humanity knows that this AI exists between space and time. Which is an interesting concept, and I want to touch on that. Technology is the only thing that evolves while humans de-evolve. That's a very, very true statement. And that's so true. Man can't even make a decent lighter laugh out loud. So true. Technological advancement should never exceed that of spiritual awareness and understanding, or else you end up like Atlantis. I'll teach you where it's heading in the end. You learned that from the same people that's trying to disprove God. Is that a question? If so, no. Atlantis is another one that's created to move people from God. Also used to believe in all that stuff.
Advanced technology has the capability of creating fantastic and benevolent results, can, in the wrong hands, create absolute destruction. The technology should never exceed one's capability of understanding it, spiritual foundations, and connection to God. Exactly, Jesse. That is my point. These dark hearts, due to their ineptitude and lack of connection to God and spiritual awareness, cannot understand that the human body is the most advanced technology there is, let alone learning how to activate it. And it's true that wonders. Mm-hmm. I won't get to that point, Jesse. It's what they want to do, but we will off this planet before they reach that point. Bingo, Jesse, beyond a supercomputer, we're absolute marvels. We have just lost the ability to activate it. We must step into remembrance and be benevolent and godly in order to access. Doesn't read the operating manual. There are safeguards in place preventing these dark hearts from accessing the information to create supernatural tech. Yes. Wow. Thank you very much. You guys have touched on some very good points here. Where do I start? So let's start over here. Chances would be that AI would have taken control and probably destroyed the life forms they created if it's created in that direction. Because AI is not all that bad. It just depends on whose hands it's in. But if it's in technocrats who are related to geopolitical forces that are still currently in conflict or at war because of a state of resource scarcity mindset, then that technology can be in the bad hands and be used for bad things. But I think it's inevitable for us to create robots. I just, it just depends who's creating those robots and with what intentions. Because I believe it can be safeguarded and protected. It just depends what you're programming into it and the parameters you're putting in place in order to prevent it, isn't it? So, as I said, if so, yeah. So, what I was saying earlier was there's something in quantum physics that has physicists scratching their heads like crazy because they can't believe it. It's no, they can believe it obviously because they express this finding and knowledge, but it's finding out the wave and particle duality state of particles. You know, it's they're scratching their heads because they can't understand how they found out that reality materializes in each individual field, in each individual's field of focus. And they found this out through the double slit experiments. The wave particle duality state, matter, its anti-material state, is very prevalent because matter constantly at an extremely fast rate materializes and dematerializes and switches between this wave particle duality state. Okay, from a particle to pilot waves, the quantum waves that the particle collapses into as it disappears. So This experiment has shown and proven that particles only materialize in each individual's field of focus. And this is why it has them, including myself, scratching our heads. Because what the experiment's gone ahead and shown and proven is that matter doesn't behave how we've been led or taught to believe that it does. Matter has a very prevalent anti-material state that it continually switches between as matter self-annihilates and re-emerges constantly. Matter is disappearing and reappearing. It's constantly switching and alternating between this wave and particle state. So some might ask the question, well, is matter even moving? Or is it just reappearing and disappearing and reconfiguring its position in order to create the illusion of movement and duration? So it's quite a perplexing study because it's shown us that matter has extremely prevalent antimaterial properties that is constantly alternating between this wave particle duality state, which means that the way matter moves is a lot more mysterious than we given it credit for. We've shown that through mere observation, we affect things on a subatomic and photon level, subatomic energy. And on an atomic level, we've found out that we affect photons just by our observation. Our mere observation alone affects whether or not those photons materialize or stay in a wave state, an unmaterialized state, which gets even more perplexing and mind-boggling to think that physicality is alternating between anti-materiality and physicality as it exists in a wave particle state. That's how it exists in an anti-material and material state. An anti-material state is a wave state. It's emanating vibratory waves from photons and subatomic particles and energy. So it's a perplexing experiment because it shows you, and this is why all these physicists are scratching their head, because it shows you that this is why they're starting to believe that we may be in a simulation because of how things are behaving on a quantum subatomic level. And as I've explained to you, that experiment's very strange and freaky because it's proved that when you're not observing matter, it doesn't behave as a particle anymore. It behaves as a wave, so the particle collapses and stays at a wave state. Now, that's extremely strange and mysterious and mystical because it shows a certain holographic nature of reality. A hologram, I mean, because you have to remember a light in the form of a photon can behave as a wave and a particle. Okay, so the sun emits particles and waves towards Earth that behave as particles and waves as they alternate throughout their frequency. And so when we start to see that its fundamental quantum nature is directly affected by our mere observation, we see that reality is like consciousness, it's holographic. If reality is not conscious, then explain the double slit experiment to me. Why is why is reality on a quantum level reacting to our conscious observation if it's not conscious? How come when we observe photons, they behave as particles, and when we don't observe them, they behave as waves? How do you explain that? That's the truth. That's what we're finding out. Empirical evidence, repeatable and observable evidence. That's what the double slit experiment is. And what it's shown us is how strange reality is and how reality actually functions in a realm of materiality and immateriality. So these two realms are heavily influencing each other, okay? And they're conscious, which is what that experiment's proven. It's proven that space is conscious because it's affected by our observation and consciousness. So if it just gets stranger and more complicated. I'm not going to confuse myself as I get stuck in a rabbit hole of this, but it's mind blowing to think that they prove this, that reality, we're in a realm of waves and particles, and the particles are waves as well. And the particles disappear and reappear like a hologram. So that wave state, that conscious, subconscious reality wave state is where it gets strange. And it's interesting to see this because we wonder about life after death. Well, when we're looking at our science today, we're seeing that there is a huge invisible component of reality, immaterial, non physical component of reality that's very much affecting and even holding together this physical reality, like the invisible force of gravity and all these multiple invisible forces that we've yet to undiscover or understand that are holding together reality. While it alternates between the state of physicality and non physicality. Because reality has those two properties, it has a physical property and it has a non physical property. Okay, so this physical universe has two ways of studying it, through its physical properties and through its non physical properties. Okay, so non physicality is a reality and it affects reality, and that's what our science is showing us, which is showing you that there are realms and dimensions beyond this one that exist in a realm of immateriality, non physicality. And our consciousness affects it. Our consciousness affects our reality, and that's what we've shown and proven. Well, as humanity, through these scientific experiments, we've proved that there's an invisible nature of reality and it's directly interlinked with this physical reality. They exist hand in hand, particle wave duality state. Particles behave as waves. They are waves and they're particles at the same time. They're physical and they're not physical at the same time. And they can switch between being physical and non physical. from a particle to a wave. So I don't want to throw away science because it can be quite useful, especially when we begin to study these new strange realms of reality, which show us the building blocks of reality and show us how trans-dimensional it is, because that's exactly what it is. It's trans-dimensional from physical to non-physical state. Okay, we live in a trans-dimensional reality, and we're moving through trances in our brainwave states of neuroelectrical chemical patterns that are changing our electrical resonance and output. Each human, when technology gets advanced enough, will be able to be measured by the electromagnetic signal their body gives off. That's when you will not need non-intrusive technology to authenticate humans. Because that's what Dark was also said to have been creating bio tech authentication of humans through changing their photon electrical signals, which is obviously a bit strange and intrusive. So I believe the more advanced we will be, the less prone we'll be towards intrusive technologies. Because you may not need a brain chip to create an interface, you may just need some advanced electromagnetic technology to measure the electrical output of a human. Because that's what we have. We have the electrical output. If you can create technologies that can transcribe that electrical output, you'd be able to remotely authenticate a human being. I'm just throwing some ideas into the mix to show you that we do have these electromagnetic properties. And there's technology that can read them now, and there will be technology in the future that can interface with them, as there already is. Okay? Which observe, measure, and track the invisible nature of frequency attributed towards our body, the electromagnetic energy that our body emanates and radiates. It can be measured by EEG, electrocardiogram. There's multiple instruments and technologies that can be used to actually measure this bioelectric field that each human has. So just like a thumbprint, you have a unique thumbprint, you would have a unique bioelectric field where you'd emanate a unique signature. It's impossible for that not to be the case because you are a unique individual person with unique memories and unique evolution and progression of electrochemical evolving brainwave states throughout time. So what you think, what you know, what you remember, how you react, how you feel, what zones and modalities of consciousness you may slip into will determine your brain's electrochemical output and therefore your body's electrochemical output. Yeah, man, I'm thinking about something in programming. So we are energetic electrical beings. We are energy beings. Energy exists. It's not some spiritual woohoo concept or topic. It's real. Jesus said something really amazing. He said, if thine eye be single, thy whole body will be full of light. quite a mysterious parable and passage. But to me, that's, what light is Jesus speaking about? Because reality is compromised of light. Photons make up our reality. Electrical energy makes up our reality. And that energy can be observed in bandwidths of light that our human eye cannot see. A vast degree of less than 99%, 99.5% of light is what human eyes are able to see in the known available light spectrum, leading all the way up to gamma wave frequencies. So that's a huge proportion of the light spectrum which we're not seeing, and which our technology has developed things, instrumentation in order to help us see that through these light spectrums that exist everywhere. Okay? Because an infinite bandwidth exists all around you. Infinite bandwidth of frequency-based energy. And we know this because that's if it wasn't true, radios wouldn't exist. Radios work by tuning onto a certain bandwidth of frequency available anyway, and a radio station would project their radio station onto that specific frequency, which exists everywhere throughout reality. Okay, if you had a radio station strong enough on another planet, you could pick up what radios are projecting on certain bandwidths here. But you'd have to have a technology which would spread far enough to reach this area that these radio towers are broadcasting a frequency on in order to receive that specific signal. So radio frequencies are very indicative of this invisible realm of bandwidth that's superimposed into all reality and affects all reality. So we're seeing a very small amount of what's actually available in this bandwidth of realities. And so I believe that some people may see these bandwidths of light, maybe through their pineal gland. I see light, looks like plasma. Sometimes looks like static plasma. If I close my eyes for long enough, it begins to create imagery. I see it all over the place. And so I wonder, is this some sort of sight, some sort of spiritual sight that I may have and that other people may have, because there are other people that report seeing stuff? Or, we're getting a little bit mysterious here. But these invisible realms that exist all around us. And the question is, what are we not seeing in these invisible realms of reality and consciousness that exist through us and within us? And as Jesus said, the kingdom of heaven is within you. And if thine eye be single, thy whole body will be full of light. What is the advice that he gave? So he was quite a. I'm going to tell you my interpretation of that. You may have your own interpretation of that. That's fine. I'm just going to tell you my interpretation of that. My interpretation of that is, I believe we are these beings of light. We live in infinite fields of light. We know this, that's a fact, scientifically speaking. And I believe that when he said, if thine eye be single, the whole body will be full of light, it makes me think of, if thine eye be single, like your mind's eye, and your eye, it gives me and the whole body will be full of light. Did he see his body as full of light? Because it's reported that that's what happened when he was supposed to have been speaking to Elijah, and was it Moses? It was Elijah and Moses. And his whole body started resonating with this light. And that's what some of the disciples had seen and reported. So to me, I feel like Jesus may have known a lot about how reality works. And Jesus may have very well known exactly how it works. He may have been well, he obviously was reported to have been a very spiritually gifted person, but he must have been a very spiritually gifted person in terms of foresight, premonitions, precognitive capabilities, because that's what he had throughout the entire Bible. He had precognitive awareness of the journey that he would go on and what would happen. And even in the future, he prophesied things that would happen in the future, not only in his life, but after his life. And he knew that he wouldn't be around for long, you know? And so he knew what he was doing. But I was just like, how did he know? He must have had some sort of revelation throughout his life, because there's missing years of Jesus. Jesus lived for a very long time. Obviously not that long, but still quite long. Because the Bible only takes you through a small percentage of his life. A testimony of when he started, you know? So there's so much that Jesus may have experienced in his life that to us may seem extremely mystical. And he obviously knew a lot about how reality works. He is the number one guy who spoke the most about heaven out of anyone in the Bible and anyone out of any religion. Life after death, paradise. So I believe it. I believe in what he had to say. And he obviously knew about that. How did he know so much about heaven? because he's the number one guy that taught the most about heaven in the Bible. How did he know so much about heaven? Because he was Son of God and he had divine abilities, prophetic abilities. Because how did he learn all? You know? He must have lived a very supernatural life. And so he obviously had certain abilities. He was able to do some seriously miraculous and divine stuff. And he even grew frustrated at the people not catching on to what he was teaching and saying, "Oh, you sinful and adulterous, faithless generation, when will you learn?" So he knew a lot. And it gives me a lot of comfort, his message. I suppose that's what you gotta have, faith. But I feel like I'm starting to see into, because remember, there's been many prophets throughout the Bible. It's not only been Jesus that have had certain abilities, very detailed prophetic capabilities that have been proven to come true time and time again. Over 2,000 prophecies in the Bible have been fulfilled to this very day. So it is true that as humans have these potential for these capabilities of prophetic visions and prophetic dreams and understandings. And I believe Jesus came here also to teach us how to have that faith and to live by it, the perfecter of our faith. That's exactly who he is. And the messenger, that's what Christ means, Messiah. He came to give the message of the kingdom of heaven. Thank God that he did, because if he didn't, we wouldn't have as much detailed information about it as we do thanks to Jesus. It's about 500 prophecies yet to be fulfilled, actually, according to Google. 2,500 prophecies in total, 2,000 to date have come true. So even Jesus' death and resurrection was prophesied before it even happened. So the point is that, you know, I'm not forcing my religious beliefs into anybody, but I'm just expressing certain points of curiosity and contemplation as I'm contemplating the reality of the Bible, reality of prophecies, the reality of these prophecies coming true, and much evidence and information to show that many of them have to this current day. And I'm looking at humans and our divine nature, and I'm looking at science as a lens to also look at that divinity of reality, that divinity of creation, that divinity of life, the divinity of being human. And I would say that we are divine. I think we get caught in the matrix. And the matrix, which is a system, sucks us in to this repetition of belief and faithlessness that leads us to living in a very dark and grim and redundant reality. But if thine eye is single, our body will be full of light. If you can access that light within you, the kingdom of heaven is within you, you can break out of this matrix of belief and repetition and evolve into new realms of awareness, faith, consciousness, and understanding. So, yeah, I believe we have that potential. And I believe that humans do have supernatural capabilities and abilities. And I believe there's a light, divine God consciousness light creates all reality. You know, I believe in what Jesus had to say about being the great I am, the first and the last. Because there's enough room within reality for that to be possible. And the Bible is such a big collection of evidence that it's very hard to ignore or overlook what it actually is presenting. So, I know people usually shut off when you start speaking about religion and the Bible and this and that, but it's a huge historical context that you can't ignore. Unbelievable book, actually. If you actually read it, if you actually take time to read it, it's yeah, historically speaking, and miraculously speaking, it's an unbelievable book. That's what it is. It's the most unbelievable book ever, actually, because there are so many stories of some unbelievable things happening, miracles. And so, do miracles exist? I believe they do. I actually have a book of it in my brother's room about miracles existing. Because people were reporting them all around the world in different instances and cases. So, yeah, I do see a miraculous component of reality as being a very stark reality. I believe we are spiritual, physical beings. I don't want to get too woo-hoo spiritual, but I do believe that. I believe we live in a spiritual, physical reality, and that's what I've been describing when I discussed the particle wave state of duality. I believe we are supernatural beings in a physical machine created to animate us into existence. That's a great way of putting it. I like that. So yeah, I believe we are supernatural beings. Hey, Secretary, great evening. Good to see you. Brother, I would love to talk to you about miracles. My son Isaiah blows everyone's mind. Well, that sounds great. I'd be more than happy to hear. I love hearing stories about miracles. So if you've got some, please share them. I really appreciate that one way or another. I think it's very good for people to to hear that and be reminded that people actually do report miracles happening to them. Good to see you too, brother. Peace be with you and all in chat. Amen, Secretary. It's been a great night of exploring some interesting conversations today. Okay, so yeah, I believe there is a divine supernatural element to reality. I believe science is helping us to begin to understand and study that. It's opening up more doors and questions, understanding the spooky supernatural nature of reality. It's through observing its anti-material properties and how they affect its material properties. And I believe who we are, what we are, is yet to be discovered. I believe someone like Jesus came to teach us about that, about who we are, about what we are, and what we should stand for. The eternal kingdom of heaven. That guy came with a very strong message to share to people. And as I've said, he's spoken the most about heaven out of anyone. And everyone secretly wants heaven to exist. Who doesn't want heaven to exist? Everyone secretly wants heaven to exist because no one wants to stop existing. Some people do actually want to stop existing, unfortunately, which is quite sad. But I believe there's realms beyond life that are beautiful. And I've had certain experiences and visions that have shown me that beautiful reality. Which I believe that Jesus must have had seen as well, since he had known so much about what would happen to him in his life and in our lives. He's obviously had a lot of prophetic ability. He could see into the future. He would tell people the future before it would happen. He told them, what's his name, about the rooster crowing 3 times? And on the third time, he would disown me. How did he know that? Because he could see into the future, that's why. Wow. And I believe some people can do that. I believe some people can see into the future. I believe some people can dream into the future. Yeah. And I believe that's a very under-researched thing, which is why it's very good to hear about these miracles that people may happen to experience. So yeah, that's this talk for today. It's been a very interesting conversation. Blazing Bread UK. I'd love to hear you share those miracles, genuinely and honestly. Because I love hearing stuff like that. It's really important for what I'm studying and looking into. Because I'm actually looking into this, and which actually I want to do after this video. I want to go ahead and look at some YouTube videos and miracles. And so, yeah, if you haven't already, join my Patreon. I'll put a link in the description. I share videos like this on there and many other interesting videos. For as little as $1, you can support the work that I do. I really do appreciate that. I'm not on Instagram, no, but actually, I'm on Instagram. Actually, my name on Instagram is, let me just check, JC_LGA. And I'll put that Instagram. Jesse LGA. Yeah, please share that with me. If you can send me a voice recording, I'd love to do that. And also, yeah, definitely open to having conversations. Absolutely, don't have a problem with that at all. So you can reach out to me on Instagram. I'd appreciate that. I think it's yeah, have a good day. Just annoyed. Some of the I'd love to speak to you too. Hopefully you have my Instagram there. Man. I was busy working on this stupid thing. Why is this not working? Okay. Anyway, guys, that's the end of this talk. Thank you very much for joining. I really do appreciate it. Sending you lots of love. Keep all. Amen. God bless.